with the POWER method, like I like to call it. POWER stands for proven strategies, optimization, world-class messaging, everyday consistency, and results. And, that really, I like to say you would never, if I live in Illinois, so I would never decide I'm going to get in my car and drive to California and just get in the car and start driving that way. You're going to use a map or a GPS or something, because all it takes is one wrong turn or missing one road. And instead of ending up in California, I could end up in Texas or Canada. And so the same thing when it comes to that strategy is creating a map essentially for your brand.
Jess, I really am grateful for you joining me today. I will fully acknowledge to our audience that I invited Jess on a podcast about a year ago, a little more than a year ago now, the other podcast that I have, and totally lost touch. And it's all my fault. I let life just get in
No.
the way. And that's not how I like to operate, but unfortunately it happened. So Jess is incredibly gracious and patient with me. You accepted my apology, and I was already starting this podcast. So I think we found the better podcast to be on, because you and I met at the Realies a year ago, where we were celebrating creators and the award ceremony, launching that inaugural first award. And I'm so excited that we finally sit down to have a conversation about what you're doing in the marketing space and branding, and with your agency. So Jess, share your background, a little bit of what brought you into marketing, and maybe what you want us to know right now about what you're doing or what your agency's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, I am honored to be here, Rebecca, and just grateful that we met at the Realies. What a special way to bring so many creators and just an online community into a real life experience. And congratulations to you on being a Realies winner this year. Was super sad not to be there this year. But yes, a little bit about me. So I created Power Branding back in 2019, when I was actually still working full-time as a corporate accounting manager, and made a complete career shift. You don't typically hear anyone going from accounting to marketing, but really what I saw was a need. What I'm most passionate about is health and wellness, and that lifelong journey of always expanding your own health, your physical health, your mental health, emotional health. But what I saw were so many just amazing brands in that industry that I could see were struggling just from the outside looking in. And so I saw an opportunity there to help them not only support their brand, but to support the people that need their services and their products, and getting those life-changing products and services into the hands of people that need it. And so that's really what inspired Power Branding. And over the years since then, it is obviously full-time. I no longer work in accounting. Yes.
Yay!
But also I work full-time in Power Branding, supporting health and wellness brands, really to support their entire digital ecosystem. So that's everything from their branding, their messaging, their overarching strategy, to the nitty-gritty, the social media, the paid ads, their web maintenance, their SEO, and so on. That's the short blurb about me.
I could be biased because I came into marketing through different route as well. But I feel like a lot of folks I talk to have a different journey into marketing, and there are so many different avenues you can take that it's not a one size fits all. Like, you have to go to school for marketing and study this and do that. And a lot of it comes down to being willing and curious and open to learn, because this industry is ever changing and you have to be able to adapt and be flexible. And then if you have a passion for helping people and you can know what their pain points are, then you're able to, I think, personally be a lot more successful, because you're in tune with that and paying attention to that. I don't know if you have similar thoughts or disagree.
No, I couldn't agree more with you. You said something early on that I think is really interesting. A lot of people do think like, well, I have to have a degree in this. And that doesn't just apply to marketing, right? There's a lot of avenues out there that it's so easy to almost allow fear or imposter syndrome or whatever kind of hold you back from wanting to pursue that. And I will just, in full transparency, I've never once had a client, a prospect, another creator, anyone ask me, what's your degree in? And because the truth is it's not marketing, it's accounting. And so I think that's such an interesting, just an interesting philosophy that so many of us have, right? Because we're so conditioned to think we have to have all these credentials, or that maybe this, I can't for whatever reason. And so I think just always, like you said, it's the experience, it's finding what you're good at, and just leaning into that.
Do you have a handle on accounting? Having that knowledge and that background help you when it comes to setting up the business, feeling secure in your margins, and then also helping other business owners understand how your efforts are moving them forward in a way that financially is healthy and something that they're probably paying a little bit more attention to if they don't have that marketing, branding knowledge and context.
Yeah, so the first part of that is, how do we track ROI? And there are areas of marketing that are easier. Paid ads are a really good example. We can really monitor the exact click-through rate, the purchase rate, and so on in those efforts. But yeah, when we just do a rebrand, or when we even something a little more organic, that can be a little bit harder to track. And so a couple things. Obviously, there are some tools, right? Even just using Google Analytics and website traffic and so on to pull the numbers and actually get data. But also, I like to get really creative when it comes to showing ROI for my clients. And sometimes that is as simple as making sure we're tracking, we're screenshotting, and we are recording comments that people are receiving on any platform. If it's emails, that the responses we're getting, and we're getting that feedback of what people are saying and how they're interacting with the content of any kind, or even the branding and so on. I also, another great way is communicating and polling people. Even
Mhm.
on my personal LinkedIn or my personal Facebook, sometimes I will make a post and say, if you were to purchase a X type of product, what aligns most with you? And then give some of the different ideas we have for
Ooh.
creating the branding, right? So we're almost pulling people, we're getting completely unbiased opinions. And a lot of times we do it in a way to where they don't even know exactly like why they're answering, or for what brand, so that we can get some of that feedback. So that really helps. Although some of those areas don't necessarily give you an exact ROI of X amount of dollars, we can use that data to still show, you know, via forecasting, or based on previous data, how we could see that creating an ROI in the future. So I think it part of it is one, getting creative, and two, it's also pulling the evidence and the experiences that we're getting, even if it's as simple as, hey, look at all the comments that this one social media post received, or who they're from, or here's a comment from a celebrity or something. If it's gaining traction there, we know it should gain traction financially too. So to answer the first part, there's a variety of ways, and it's all about getting creative and also keeping good records of that, right? It's just staying organized and staying on top of it.
Now to sort of echo what you're saying on this first part, this is why I think business is both art and science, if not more so art, because you do have to try new things and find new ways of pulling up that proof or credibility or building up that authority. So I like how you're approaching it. I feel like having that accounting background and being able to judge and know whether it's profitable for you and the margins and when it comes to pricing out for your clients. I would imagine that would give me an extra dose of confidence in going out and starting my own business. Did you have that, or you leverage any of that information and knowledge in a particular way?
Yes, it's so funny you bring this up, because when I first realized, when I was working in corporate accounting, that this was not the career for me, I had a lot of feelings of guilt around. I worked really hard for this degree. I'd worked really hard to get into the positions in my career. So I just had guilt for some reason. That was the feeling that kept coming up. Like, I'm throwing this away. Also, I went to college on a full ride scholarship in the College of Business. In accounting. So I'm like, oh my gosh, people literally invested in me to learn this career. And so once I worked through that, and I had a lot of mentors that supported me along the way, what I found is I use that skill set every day. So just like you said, in my own business, down to, I do my own bookkeeping. So there's some just basic benefits there.
Yeah.
But I think even more importantly to how I'm using it day in and day out is really supporting clients. So, how I'm helping them understand the ROI and understand the data that we're using and the numbers behind it. But also when it comes to a lot of times, like this time of year, especially right now, we're recording, it's the end of October, which means Black Friday is right around the corner. So I have a lot of clients that we are really focusing on their Black Friday promotions, sales, and different ways to boost some year-end revenue. But a big part of that that's important to me for my clients is, are we protecting profit margins? Are we protecting what their sales goals are, or what their financials or their board of directors or whoever are expecting out of them by year end, and using, again, that a little bit of that accounting knowledge to help do all of that as we are creating.
You mentioned seeing pain points in the health and wellness industry. And I think you mentioned on your website the idea that you're helping clients go from amateur to elite. And I'm curious, is that what you were seeing in the industry? Is that there were a lot of folks who were dependent on DIY type branding and marketing, and so with your efforts you can take them into that elite space, which I also love the verbiage, because you're kind of speaking to the athlete and the idea that our health can be elevated too.
Yes. Well, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I was kind of thinking. Amateur to elite is to resonate with those people that are a little bit more in like a fitness or a athletic, industry. I do have a lot of clients in those realms of, target audiences. So it does speak to them, but really exactly what you said. So it's really that transformation from having an idea, or you're a wealth of knowledge in whatever your zone of genius is. You have maybe a product prototype, right? To really the transformation from that to being a recognizable name in the audience that you desire to serve. Or it's the journey, kind of like you said, that from having just a basic landing page in a Facebook that your friend's daughter created for you, to actually having a robust digital ecosystem, right? That provides your audience with not only educational materials or an entertainment value, but with credibility, with a robust user journey and experience that really takes you from, like you said, just a DIY to becoming that household name in the industry you're serving. That's exactly what it means.
I love that. Having been in the fitness world, I was in it for about 5 years and seeing a whole different, varying levels of folks who were able to really communicate well what they did, and other folks who were not really present online, and knowing that they kind of needed to be to develop their own personal brand. I experienced that from a different perspective. So I totally understand what you were seeing and what you
Yep.
see, and then the benefit that can come out of that too when you have a really great partner who's branding you and helping you connect those dots and integrate your strategy. And
Yep.
you have your own framework, the
Yep.
power framework, right? So walk us through, what is that and how does that work for your clients? Is it specific
Yep.
just for the industry, or is it your approach to branding in general?
I'd say it's my approach in general, but I certainly have the most evidence when it comes to the health and wellness industry with the power method, like I like to call it. Power stands for proven strategies, optimization, world-class messaging, everyday consistency, and results. And that really, I like to say, you would never, if I live in Illinois, so I would never decide I'm going to get in my car and drive to California and just get in the car and start driving that way. You're going to use a map or a GPS or something, because all it takes is one wrong turn or missing one road. And instead of ending up in California, I could end up in Texas or Canada. And so the same thing when it comes to that strategy is creating a map essentially for your brand, on how they are going to get from day one or day now to wherever it is they want to be. Whether that's they want to be, a huge, multi, 9-figure company, or if it's just that they want to be, a regional brand, whatever that looks like, it's really creating that strategy. And then it's optimizing, is testing, it's creating the messaging that resonates, it's using the consistency of showing up all of the time, and really generating the results. So that's really the framework. I would like to think that it could work in about any industry, but like I said, the evidence I have is that it does work very well in the health and wellness industries.
That's a really great image or understanding that you can have a really big vision for yourself or want to go on that really lengthy journey. And it's not as simple as going from Illinois to California, that you're there in an instant. And yet, I have experienced working with clients. A lot of them are in a rush to get there. And you might want to take a jet from Illinois to California, but the budget might be a car and it's going to take you a couple of days. So, how do you help clients who are in that point of feeling the urgency? And I would add maybe that kind of caveat or context that everything can feel really oversaturated right now on social media, and it can be hard to stand out if you don't have that unique differentiator. But even then, it still takes time to build that community. So how do you help temper that understanding with the urgency that folks sometimes have when they're starting a business or developing a product?
I think you made a good point when you said they want to rush. And I like to ask my clients, like, what is the rush? And let's really even figure out what is the root cause of why someone feels so rushed. Is it that, financially, if they don't sell X number of dollars, they have to close their doors? Or is it that they're fighting timelines, before their child starts kindergarten? Or, what are we rushing for? Because I think sometimes we also discover in that maybe it's just a pressure we've put on ourselves. And so that can, just from a mindset perspective, allow us to step back and actually figure out what timeline we need to be working on. And also that does allow us to figure out if there is, a dollar amount or a timeline event, something that we are working with, it can allow us to then structure again the strategy around that. So just like you were saying, even if we only have a car, if the end goal is that we can take the scenic route, we may go one direction. But if it's, hey, we have to get to this, we have to get to California for a wedding that's this day and this time, we're going to take the most efficient route. And so again, we use that. So part of it too, working with clients, is it's the relationships, right? Like that is going to make a big difference in how we can best service a client, because not only are we just creating a strategy, but we really do want this strategy to work in their business and their life. Because what founder, or even if it's not, if it's a large company and say we're just working with a CMO or a team member of an existing marketing team, I'm not a big believer in like work-life balance. Like it's all one. Like it's very hard for any of us to just like leave our office and like turn that completely off. So
Yes.
again, I think it's creating relationships and really figuring out what and why we are working towards the end goal, and then using every marketing dollar as wisely as possible to reach the goal in that time frame. And again, depending on the time frame, depending on the goal, and depending on the budget, like we may be able to sprinkle that budget into a lot of areas. And sometimes we have to, it's the opposite. Sometimes it's, hey, just because this is the sexy part of marketing, just because everyone wants to be on TikTok, or it seems so exciting to have a podcast, if, like you said, if you don't have the budget for the jet, sometimes we have to narrow it down, and maybe it's doing the not so sexy marketing, but it is the one that gets us to California or to the end goal. So again, that just takes a little bit more, in my experience, that also takes the relationship building. It takes building the trust and the conversations, the hard conversations of where a business is at and where they're looking to go.
I love that you mentioned the relationship portion, because you need that whether you're in-house or an agency. You do need to establish that because it's collaborative. And if the owner of the brand isn't investing in some form of engagement with whoever's doing their marketing, then it's really challenging to be successful because you can't capture that voice. And
Yes.
then I totally agree with you. I don't think there's a work-life balance because, to your point, it's all life. It's not work and there's no life. You might not, you might be out there like, well, I hate my job, but it's still a part of your life. There's
Mhm.
personal and there's work life. I like to think of it as an ebb and a flow. And sometimes you have to put more effort into the work, and sometimes you get to spend more time on the life. I would hate to have 50-50 balance because I don't want to work 50% of my
Yep.
life, you know?
Exactly. Yes.
But you also mentioned podcasting, and the sort of illustrates for me the idea that we're talking about here too, where it can take a long time or a longer time to develop an audience and a community. And it's about relationship in your marketing too, and your relationship with your audience. When I started my other podcast, I didn't have an audience other than my built-in friends and family who started listening, and
Yep.
then it grew from there. And 90% of the podcasts I think that are out there end by episode 3 because people don't build the consistency. So this new podcast, you're my second guest, Jess. So
What an honor.
you are, yes. So you're helping me launch this. 2 more guests, and I have beaten out the other
Exactly.
podcasters, right? And I'm not in competition with them, only myself. But I say that to say that we sometimes give up on a marketing strategy or just marketing in general. I
Mhm.
have seen people give up on their marketing because they didn't get the immediate gratification that they thought they were going to get.
Yep.
And marketing is not sales, it's different. And it does take that time to nurture and grow a relationship with your audience too. And that's where when people I like how you ask them what the rush is, because their time frame might not match their expectation and time frame might not match the reality of the time that it takes. And you're investing in something. It's not you're not buying a product that just instantly gives you results overnight.
Yep.
So I was curious what your thoughts are. Feel like we're very much aligned there.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more, and I think especially, instant gratification is not only what people are looking for, right, when they're hiring for marketing services, but the other side of that is that's as a marketer, that's what our audiences are all looking for, is that instant
Yeah.
gratification. But most of the time, we're not going to put our finger on what that is on day one. For example, I always request my new clients that we work together for a minimum of 6 months. It takes that time to establish the synergy with the brand. It takes that time for us to not only create and to start getting the data and to be able to analyze that, make pivots and really do some optimization, A/B testing. But it also just takes that much time, like you said, to build trust and for audience to continue to see something time and time again and to decide to make a purchase. I mean, how often do you catch yourself when you do buy off of an ad online? Maybe it's while you're scrolling or on some other platform, but it's because you've seen it time and time again. It's not typically very seldom do I buy something the very first time I see it. But when it keeps showing up in some way, that's normally when the actual action of a purchase or any type of action, a download or in your case, listening to a podcast, whatever that is, it does take time, and that can be a hard pill to swallow, especially as when you are the business owner, when you do have the timeline or you do have the financial burdens and things like that. But I do think that that is exactly it. It's also, are you willing to stick with this? And, I actually, my best friend owns a business. She's not in the marketing world, but we were kind of talking about, I do find myself thinking about my clients like all the time, even outside. So this is why maybe I don't believe in work-life balance, because how often I don't know that I've taken a shower recently where I don't think about like a client or a work or a design or an idea or an ad campaign, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where I think too, when you're talking about that it takes time, it also takes dedication, right? So
Mhm.
my clients, I have to know when we decide to collaborate together that you are in this for the long haul, not just in our relationship, but in your business. Like, is this the business, or in your case, is this the podcast? Is this the topic that is a hill you're willing to die on? Because I will lose sleep over it. I will think about it while I'm in the shower. I will think about it while I'm driving to visit my family. I will think about it 24/7. And I do not, like, I have my own business. I do not want to be thinking about someone else's business and someone else's brand more than they are. And so I think that's a big part of it too, right? Is like, not only are you just willing to wait out and create the time that it takes to build a community, but are you do you believe in what you're doing enough to make that commitment to not only establish the community, but just to even establish what it is you're doing?
That's so well said. And you're not alone. I get ideas in the shower too.
Right?
It's supposed to be a good place because you're stepping away from the problem and I don't know the psychology of it, but there's something to being in a different setting and letting your brain kind of relax. Same thing with walking. And so that resonates with me, and it makes me remember too. I think of marketing as solutions and finding solutions for the relationship
Yes.
building, for the connection. Of course, the brand or the business has to be offering value. So I'm sure we could have a whole conversation on what you do when you're working with a product that maybe doesn't work. We don't have to go that route, but we really are working to find solutions for people. And so you need to have that awareness of what the human needs are. And to your point, the owner of the business needs to be considering that as well too, because they need to be meeting their audience's needs. And if they're not aware of how they're perceived, their reputation, how they're building trust, then it can be very hard to meet those needs of your clients, customers, audience, etc.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's a big part of it too, right? Like, have you, taken the time to get to know your audience, to get to know their needs? And I think, sometimes, again, as a founder, if you start and I see this sometimes over the years with clients I've worked with, if you start stepping into a full, like, CEO role before you really get in the nitty-gritty to actually learn and, like, hear what your audience is saying, like, what do they want? If you try to start, like, offloading responsibilities or outsourcing too
Mhm.
early, even in marketing, if you outsource your marketing a little too early, you lose that touch point with your clients. You lose the everyday seeing what Instagram posts got a lot of comments and what didn't, what sparked a lot of DMs, what didn't, and you lose a little bit of that. And I think when you're still in a founding position and you're still, like, fine tuning a product or a service, or you're still honing in on who that product or service is for, contrary to a lot of advice, I think when you stay just a little bit in the weeds, you get that feedback so that you can actually then, when you do step out of them, that's when the growth happens because you have so much more clarity.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really good reminder. I see a lot online of folks offering business advice, and whether, we would say they're qualified to or not is one thing. But one of the main pieces of advice I keep seeing is, you need to work on the business, not in the business, or however it goes.
Yep, yep.
I think there's a time and a place for both if we're gonna distill it down to one of those two options. If you have an online business where you're selling remotely, you don't have the opportunity to be with your customers while they're making that purchase decision. So you have to have an awareness of what's being said and shared online. And I like that you encourage the founders and anyone starting something to have that awareness, because how else can you iterate and improve your product, your offer, if you don't get that feedback from your customer?
Absolutely. Could not agree more.
We're very much in agreement. I challenge anyone listening to disagree with us in the comments, of course, civilly, but um, you said something earlier too about strategy, and I also think that, well, there's a difference between strategy and tactics, trends, right? How do you approach that difference between what is strategy and what's a tactic today? Because my context for the question is I see a lot of people throwing tactics out in the name of strategy, and so I'm curious how you differentiate the two.
Well, I like to also figure out what the full picture looks like. So there's individual marketing tactics, but in my opinion, the strategy is how each tactic is actually going to then work its way through the rest of the funnel into a sales pipeline, into the purchase, and maybe even into the experience that the consumer has once they make a purchase. So for me, it's really getting a full like holistic picture of what's happening so that then we're not just using any tactic. Because for example, I have some clients that, we are selling something high ticket. We've got to get them into the hands of a salesperson, and where they're going to have a much more intimate conversation. There's that purchase decision looks a lot different versus a client that maybe is selling some type of a health service. So maybe there's not so much of like a sales representative conversation happening, but it's a very intimate type of purchase, right? Like it's your health, if it's your hormones or your weight or your some other health issue, like that is a very intimate, like it's not like I'm not asking you, so Rebecca, how much do you weigh and how much do you wish you weighed? Like that's a very like vulnerable conversation. So again, the tactics I use to market that look different than like a high ticket purchase versus a retail, like if I'm selling a bag of protein powder, those tactics have to look different because the end user experience is so different. And so I think that to me is the difference when I think of the strategy versus like individual tactics. Comment this trigger word for this bot to send you, a promo code looks a lot different for the $50 bag of protein powder versus your next 6 month on hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
And so on. So I think that to me, again, that's where that relationship is so important, and knowing the entire user experience, the entire business model, even also getting to know like who are the salespeople? If there is a sales, the next sales journey, what does that look like? So that we're also using tactics that prime them for those conversations, because each brand and individual person is a little bit different. So we want to make sure we're priming our consumers along the way.
I don't know that your non-marketer knows how much effort really goes into putting all this together, because not only do we need to know marketing, we need to understand the business that we're marketing as well as how it all fits together. And I love how you describe tactics. It makes a lot of sense to me, but I'm also coming from that background. But I still think it can make a lot of sense to other people when they understand the outcome that you're looking for and the way that you want people to feel about the product and engage with the product. You need to keep that in mind, as well as how people are going to feel comfort wise. Because you're right, health is very personal. Health, wellness, fitness is all very personal, and people can feel a lot of anxiety or nervousness or, lack of confidence when it comes to those certain aspects. And there's a privacy element involved too. So if you're not considering that and taking all that into account, I can understand how the experience might not be a good one. And one of the things that I pull from arts marketing is the understanding that marketing is about creating experiences as you're developing the relationship. And that experience starts from the moment somebody hears about you and your brand or your company or whatever you have to offer. It's not the moment that they're purchasing or considering the purchase, but it's way back as soon as they get to know about you. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into getting there.
And I think what we're seeing now when you're talking about the experience that someone's having the second they learn about a brand, I think now with AI being so predominant in our world, I think we will see that the importance of the experience from the second you learn about a brand being even more important, because I can only speak for myself, but personally, I already all the time am thinking that's not real. I have this filter whether I want it or not. Sometimes that feels more like a curse than a blessing. But I do believe that becomes even more important is every type of branding element or marketing materials that you're putting out there, are you willing to allow that to be someone's initial impression? Or, and it can also go all, as far as who you're aligning your brand with, right? Like if you are pairing with collaborators, if you're pairing with influencers, if you're doing business partnerships, any of that, is that, like you said, anytime you pair with a third party of any kind, you're guaranteed for new eyeballs to be on you. So is that the type of eyeballs you want on your brand? And are they going to be comfortable or have a good vision of your brand when they realize who you're partnering with in some way. I think again, when you add the AI element now, that's just going to be that much more important because I think as a society, we do already have a filter for that.
You're speaking to something I heard recently, and I can't remember who said it, but and I think it's not original to them, but it's the idea that your brand is as much what you want to be aligned with as the opposite, what you don't want to be aligned with. And you're absolutely right. AI can be a really helpful tool to help enhance what we're doing, but it does it does make me super cautious. Like I see all the Sora videos that are out there, and
Mhm.
usually they're videos that are extreme, like bears on porches and grandmas feeding bears and lions coming up and about to pounce on a kid, and then the cat chases them away. And there are just certain things and elements that we now know to look for in those kind of videos. And I approach anything like that with a healthy dose of skepticism. Maybe I'm cynical now, but I love that you're speaking to that efficiency. But something I shared and my first guest on this podcast we're talking about is how AI cannot replace the human voice and creativity. And so, is there a way when it comes to branding that you can leverage AI to help with some of the heavy lifting and not replace the humanity in what's necessary to develop those relationships?
Yeah. When it comes to branding, especially, I think AI is a really beautiful tool for research and really being able to quickly gather a lot of data, a lot of feedback on, a target demographic, on the what could the user experience look like, what could their pain points be. But I think really what I'm learning for power branding and for my business and even my own brand is that what I'm offering my clients is still that white glove service of yes, AI, like anybody would call me a liar if I sat here and said we don't use AI, but we do. But also I think it is the how do we give it that white glove effect of I'm still going to filter this through my human eyes and I'm going to add my own human emotion and my own human creativity? Or how do I take an idea and just expand upon it? And I'll give you here's a really good real life example that isn't necessarily marketing, but today I'm a bridesmaid in a wedding next month. And the maid of honor sent a text to all of us bridesmaids. It's a big wedding. There's 12 bridesmaids. She sends a text and she says, "Hey, the night for the wedding, we are going to, do a little like get together with the bride. We're doing some gifts, so make sure you kind of come prepared." And I had this idea. The bride is a huge Taylor Swift fan. I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan, so I was like, I should totally do like a kind of a care package thing, and I'll do like the life of a bride instead of life of a showgirl. So again, I had an idea, and then I went to AI and I said, I want you to use the lyrics from these songs to give me to pair with these items that I'm going to purchase as the gift to make like a fun, a little like comparison for each item where it's like includes song lyrics and, to bring that to life. So the same thing with branding is I use AI to really help from a research, creating the bare bones. Then I use my own creativity, my own filter, my team's creativity, right? Like I have a small team, get multiple other heads in the mix here to get more ideas flowing and then feed that back into AI to really then further develop on it, right? Because again, like when I had this idea for this gift, off the top of my head, I couldn't think of every single lyric from all these new Taylor songs, but I knew they were in there. And so I sped up the process a little bit. So then I knew exactly what to purchase, how to bring this to life and so on. Same thing for a brand, right? Is so it's just adding the human element. I think that's where right now when you have that like red flag feeling when you see something that's very AI like online, is they're just forgetting to weave in the human brain, the human creativity, your own human experience into what it can create and how we can use it.
Love that. And that's a great kind of use case. And I like the personal example too, because there are so many great ways you can use it to make your personal life efficient.
Right.
I'm going to put a disclaimer like if you're using it for legal advice or medical advice, please don't unless you're a doctor or lawyer and you want to
Right.
do that. But yeah, like there are so many great ways that we can use AI without replacing ourselves as the driver of what is happening. And at the end of the day, like AI agents or not, we still have to be the ones executing on it anyway to some degree, whether in full or in part. So you really can't, I don't think you can remove yourself entirely, no matter how far along we get with robots. But, marketing, again, it goes back to the relationships, which is the point you made. And if we are trying to remove ourselves completely from it, then it's really hard to have a relationship with your client, your audience, your customers. So I'm glad you shared that perspective. And as we evolve in whatever we end up doing with AI, that curiosity, and I don't think, I think that curiosity is going to be helpful, but I don't think we're going to ever disregard that understanding that we've got to be at the center of it. So there's a lot more we could chat on that, but I know I
Yes.
have to be mindful of your time because you're a busy business owner and you're going into a really busy season. So I have a quick lightning round for us. Are you ready?
Perfect.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
ready, or I'll do my best.
Favorite platform for storytelling right now, October 2025.
Ugh, I'm an Instagram girly through and through. It might be because I'm a millennial, but that's it for me.
That's fair. Me too. Marketing buzzword you'd retire forever, like it's done, sun's.
I don't know if you would call this a buzzword, but like buying followers, buying email lists, like just buying your audience, it's gone for me.
Don't do it, folks.
Yep.
Don't give in to temptation. um, okay, I love this one because I think this is important for anyone who wants to work with you. So, one thing you wish more business owners knew and understood about branding.
Okay. I'm just going to say it, and it may not feel warm and fuzzy, but if it were as simple as like putting $1,000 towards it and, or even just like I'll make a few posts or I'll make these colors or this logo to be successful, wouldn't everyone have a successful brand? Like if it were, as simple and inexpensive as that. So I think it's just the reality of it is that there is so much more that goes into branding, right? Like it really, that's where that human element, the figuring out your brand is really like how you make people feel. It's how you speak to them. It's how you show up. It's who you align yourself with, what platforms you're on. I mean, I could go on and on. And so that is why, I think I always have to giggle when someone thinks that if I just do these couple things that'll be it. That's where the success comes. And it's like, if that were true.
If it were that easy, everybody would be doing it. And exactly.
Yes.
So, all right, last one. This one is especially for you because of your business. Finish the sentence. A powerful brand. Feel.
A powerful brand feels personal to me. It
Oh,
feels so intimate with a buyer's desires, with their frustrations, their lifestyle. It's so personal that it becomes a no-brainer for someone to engage with a brand, to purchase from a brand. It's a personal experience.
that is great. I'm
Yeah.
going to steal that too.
Please do. Please do.
You own it, but I'm going to steal it.
Hey,
Borrow
hey,
that.
we're all in this together.
We truly are. And that's why I'm so grateful for your time and just patience with me. Over a year ago, we
Oh my god.
connected. But
Well,
now let's keep it going. Let's keep the connection going.
this just shows the power of, we met one time and a year later we're here, we've stayed in contact.
That's
That's the
true.
power of the digital world.
We are. And more so, like, we do need to support each other because it's tough out there. Marketing is not an easy field. No matter what we have supporting us, AI, awesome teams, etc., we have to stick together. And so I'm so appreciative of you sharing your insights and experience. Where can people connect with you? Speaking of relationship building.
Yes, of course. Well, Instagram, I just told you it's my favorite platform. Connect with Power Branding. Our handle is I am Power Branding. Or if you want to connect with me personally, my handle is I am Jessica Butcher. So that they're kind of similar there. Or if you are, more interested in some type of work together, collaboration, whether it's from branding to socials, emails, just full marketing campaigns, our website, iampowerbranding.com. There's a, application on there and we can, we fill it out, we can collaborate, we can connect and get moving and grooving.
Jessica, thank you so much. You have been an awesome guest. I know this podcast has more than 4 episodes to come, so you're welcome back at any time to chat. And thank you for being a wonderful guest and our audience for being wonderful listeners. We will catch you on the next episode of Today in Marketing.